personally have I want people to identify themselves. That's what I do. When I look at people, I personally get frustrated when I like see people and I'm like, this person looks just like me, but they're not calling themselves black. And when I know people who say that they are like they're mixed, and I'm like, what is that? What does it mean to be mixed? You know, if you have Indian in your family, and I'm being facetious when I say that because I don't even use that term when referring to indigenous people of this land, but if you have Native American ancestry, raise your hand, please. Okay, so that looks like at least 1/4 of the people in this room, if not more, right? That's it? Nobody else have Indian in their family? Okay, a couple people in the back. All right. So, and even, you know, even using that term Indian, like why are we referring to the indigenous people who lived here as Indian when India is a country in, you know, Asia? But, so, right. So, you know, when people, like Rosa said that, I hear Puerto Ricans say, well, I have, you know, Taino heritage and I have European heritage and I have African heritage. How is that different from an African American person? Because how many African Americans say that they have 100% African blood, like just straight up, you know, yeah, Cinque was your grandpa, right? Okay, you know, and if you look at our complexions, you know, again, and that's why we did the exercise at the beginning, you know, we had like very light-skinned people to very dark-skinned people. Again, the fact that we're not extremely dark-skinned, even though all African people, continental Africans are not dark-skinned, and we have different phenotypes, you know, East Africans, Kenyans look totally different than West Africans, Nigerians are different from Ghanaians, look different from people from Sierra Leone, and you know, even those categories have been recently made with colonization, because you have these groups within those countries that have been classified by, you know, their colonial powers. So you have houses in different countries, you have Yoruba people in different countries, Akan people in different countries, but I personally want people to identify with something. I don't think that we should be able to move through our spaces and say, I'm whatever. Because I think when we listen to bomba, when we listen to salsa, when we listen to mambo, when we listen to samba, and all the rest of these music forms and genres, what you hear is consistent, is a beat, and it's a percussion, and it's a drum, and that comes from a place. When you look at, you know, I clown with my coworker Monica, who's from Puerto Rico, and I'm like, with that junk in your trunk, baby, it's no question about where your ancestry is from, okay? And so, you know, we clown about that, but but it's something, you know, there are certain things I believe that tie us as a people, you know, how we express ourselves aesthetically, you know, in terms of the way we wear our hairs and the colors. Even, I was in the Caribbean one trip, and this woman was yelling down the street to somebody, and I'm like, that is so like African, you know, just like hooping and hollering, you know, but things that European people identify as being quote unquote ghetto or wrong, like even, you know, CP time, if I can for a second, this whole concept of CP time is what? Color people time, right? Which means what? Late. Exactly. That we know that black folks are going to come to an event late. They're going to start the events late. What is that really, in essence? African time, which is circular, versus European time, which is linear. So, you know, at one point in time, based on our aesthetic, when we did things, it was more important about what we were doing, that we actually did it, than when we did it, and what time we did it. I'm going to come by your house next week. Could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But whenever I came to your house, you know, next week, right? And so it's this European concept that, you know, you have to do this and do this and do this and do this, because their time is linear, our time is circular. So no matter where you go around the diaspora, people operate on this time. If we're having a party, a birthday party, you know that if it starts at 10 o'clock, what time is the party really going to get started? 12. And that's universal, no matter where you go around the diaspora, right? But it is all good. But because we live in this Eurocentric society, it's deemed as certain things that are African are deemed as being wrong or deemed as being ghetto. So I want to discuss like why is, you know, where does this reluctance come from to identify with black, or really, which is really identifying with African. We can go into the discussion of hair, right? Because we know that stereotypically, when we talk about stereotypes, Dominican people in hair, we're known for what? They will blow it out, straighten your hair up, there's so many African American women that I know that will go and get their hair straightened by Dominican women because there's this infatuation that we cannot have this kinky hair.
Yes.
We got to have this what? Good hair. And Chris Rock, even though he did this film, he really didn't touch on the historical implications of, like he talked about weave and stuff. We talking about, you know, good hair being what? Hair, not hair that's like a weaved hair, but hair that is what? European, really. It's either naturally curly, right, or it's straight. But it's like loosely curled, right? But my hair is not good, supposedly. It's bad. So again, it's like these categories and this reluctance to identify with black, this reluctance to identify with African. Can you all touch on that?
Yes. I think to answer the last portion of the question, I think power is the answer. I don't know in what society where there was slavery, the people who were slaves were being whipped, who had to starve, who lived under the worst conditions you could possibly live under. Like, for example, those Africans, those Yoruba, those Bamanans, those, you know, Ibo and Fang people from West Africa who were brought to Haiti and were subjected to like the worst type of, you know, labor. I think that if you look at the reluctance, you will find that oftentimes without there necessarily being an articulate understanding of the dichotomy and what it means of black and white, especially when you go to outside the US, Mexico, Morocco, Dominican Republic, you will find that the experiences of people, like the way people are funny and like clever and cunning and poignant about letting you know that you are just being a fool or a clown. You know that book, Black Skin, White Mask by Frantz Fanon? It's like the best way to look at an experience from like a psychological point of view, a historical point of view, and look at the media and what the effect of the media, like the comics that the kids would read back in Fanon's day. We're talking about like 1940s. And today that has, you know, increased the way that you see that you can go to Morocco, for example, and pick up a really glossy, nice magazine in Marrakesh, and you can look in it, and you will find that you have the same ratio of women or men of African descent who are Moroccans, who are Berber or other African ancestry or ethnicity, and usually it's like 85, 90, and then you have a 10% of like sisters and brothers who look, you know, that we call it morenito lavadito in Spanish, you know, like the features are like a Barbie, you throw a little black paint on it, ready, black woman, you know? And when you look at that, and also like the way, I have a personal experience from this, when I read Fanon's book, so many memories from my childhood, like things that I could relate to the things he was talking about in Martinique. I remember one time I went into a barbershop, I was 16, 17, and I had just gone to see the latest James Bond movie with Roger Moore. And I go into the barbershop and I tell the barber, hey, I want that Roger Moore haircut. This old man, you know, this old Dominican man, predominantly of African descent, he looked at me like, the fuck are you talking about? You know, morenito come coco, pelo malo. You know, and I was like, you know, just do whatever. And that stayed with me for a while. Otherwise, I would not have been able to recall it when I read Fanon's book and how he talked about the influences that the media had in his time on how he saw himself, you know? I was reading a book that just came out recently. It's a really, really wonderful book. It's a Barnes & Noble. It's about $25. And it's titled Pictures of the Mind. Sorry, quoting the wrong one. It's titled The Hidden Brain. And this book is by Shankar Vedantar. And it says, most of us would agree that there's a clear and even obvious connection between the things we believe and the way we behave. And the things we believe come to us through words and through pictures and images. And so when we look at, for example, the discursive category of black,